There you go.
All right, I guess we're good to go here. Thank you, Casey. So today's topic is the new media plan builder tool. Some of you may have already used it if you're on Bionic. We rolled it out, I want to say last Tuesday night, so it's been in production for a few days. Where it fits into the overall product is really, as the name implies, it's a media plan builder tool. So it's helping you to find vendors and media to go into your media plan and helps you with the construction of your media plan. The problem that we're trying to solve here with this new tool is if you're using another tool such as here, I'm using Excel or another media planning system. Lots of times when you start a new media plan, it's kind of like it just gives you a blank page, and then you have to just essentially just construct it from scratch, which is not that helpful. Even if you have a template of some sort that has calculations built into it, you still have to go out and find the media and do the research. And that's really what we're trying to facilitate here with a solution. So the solution is a new media plan builder tool. And when you're looking at the UI, it's not a lot different than it was before, unless you're really, really observant. But when you come in and create a new media plan, it looks slightly different, where you're just essentially welcomed with a blank page here. And the way to get started is to, just like before, click the button here for add placements. It used to say add placement, now it says add placements, or you can just say add lines to the plan. And when you click that button, what it'll do is bring you access to a bunch of tools through one interface. The first tool here is an AI-powered media recommender. And you might be somewhat familiar with this because it's been in the Bionic software for some time now, but it has not been here in the builder tool. So we just wanted to make it easier for you to access this. So when you click add placements, by default, you'll land on the Finder tab. And that has really dual purposes. The first is if you don't apply any filters or search criteria, what it'll do is just recommend media to go into your media plan. The way that it works is you'll see different results based on which client you're working with. So if you have, say, 10 different advertisers as clients, when you create a media plan for the first advertiser and click this button, the recommendations will be very different than the second advertiser, just because of the way that the AI works. And I'm happy to talk about that more if you're curious. I guess in a nutshell, just to simplify it, is the AI it's not ChatGPT. It's actually been in our software for a few years now. And it's very similar to the way that it's the same kind of technology that Amazon uses to recommend books, or Spotify music, or Netflix movies. It's called collaborative filtering. And so the result of that is you'll see here in the strength score, and that's what we calculate to make recommendations. So that's really the first tool that's under this toolbox. The second tool is somewhat working in conjunction with the recommender, is where you can actually search the catalog of media providers. So today, Bionic has, if not the biggest, one of the biggest catalogs of advertising placements in the world. In that catalog, there's media from 14,386 vendors. And that was last week, so that's always changing. It supports 44 different media channels. So it's online, offline, billboards, print, everything. There's a bunch of categories in there, and really hundreds of thousands of advertising products to choose from. And when you add search criteria to the Finder or apply filters over to the right here, what that'll do is it'll filter the results down to those programs that meet your criteria. So, and Casey will show you in a minute, but the way that you can add these to your media plan is simply by selecting them and just hitting add the plan, or alternatively, if you want to create RFPs, you can do that too.
Hey, Joe,
Sure.
we actually have a great question pertinent to this about, are the vendors automatically populated, or can I add vendors manually too?
That's a good question. And so the answer is, I guess, sort of yes and yes, yes to both. So we're constantly working with vendors to make sure that they're properly represented within the catalog. It's a free service to vendors, by the way. So we give them free access to essentially maintain their listings in the directory. But that doesn't stop you from, as a media planner, of adding your own. So when you're creating a media plan, you can go and add vendors on the fly. So it's a very easy thing. And I don't know if this would be part of what you show off, Casey, but that might be something to come back to on the end.
Great. And we have one other question here from Tina, wondering if you can filter by geography.
Sort of. So the way to filter by geography is actually in this search box here. So there's no specific filter by geography off to the right. But if you are, say, looking in a city, like, say like Tampa, Florida, you would just add Tampa to the search box.
Okay, great. And another question, lots of questions
That's
today.
good. I appreciate the engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Bionic have the capabilities to plan targeted email advertising?
Yes. That was an easy answer. So
Easy
that is,
answer.
yeah, that is actually one of the various. I had mentioned 44 media channels. Email marketing is one of those 44.
Yep. And then, if they keep coming in, when you would want, when would you want to create an RFP versus just add to the plan?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess I don't know that I can answer that for you. It's a judgment call. Maybe one thing that you might want to show off is the program listing, or what we call data cards sometimes. So I would say that, when you would want to use an RFP is when you want to actually gather information, and that information might be really just learning more about the program. Another is understanding availability. Another reason is to get pricing. So RFP can be used for all of the above. If it's just like simply pricing, I don't know that an RFP is always necessary, because you can just call the vendor and just ask them. Or if you know the pricing, if you've worked with the vendor in the past, that pricing actually will get stored with their programs. And so whatever it is, whatever experience you have with that vendor, it'll automatically load that pricing for you. That's a great question, though. I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of RFPs because they tend to be pretty labor intensive. And, if there's a good reason for it, then they absolutely play a role. But if you are really just looking for pricing, I would say there's really no need to do it. But it's a judgment call. The tools are all there if you want to use it.
Okay, great. And someone is asking for us to elaborate briefly on the create RFP button.
Oh yeah, that's probably better in the demo. But really what it does is, like in this case, I have 4 programs selected: Cars Direct, eHow Cars, ClassicCars.com, and Car Soup. If I hit the create RFP button, what that'll do is it'll create 4 RFPs. It doesn't yet send them, but it creates the basis for those 4 RFPs. And then you can then add additional information and send it to the appropriate sales rep. But yeah, this is just a screenshot, so it might make sense to show that later as well. It's a good question.
Great. Yeah, we keep going with questions. Are you good
Yeah,
for
yeah,
that?
let's do it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I'm not. Although I said 5 minutes, we're not. If these
We'll
are
go a
great
little over.
questions, yeah.
So David is asking, if I add my contact and vendor, is that shared with everyone and becomes part of the list, or is that or is the main catalog curated as you mentioned and then add on your own?
So there's again, the answer is sort of yes to both. Or no, I'm sorry. If you add your own contacts, that's private to you. So that is really kind of like, you can almost think of it as a directory that you could add your own notes to it. So we maintain a public directory that includes information about the programs, the sales people that the vendors tell us about, the products that the vendors tell us about, or they add themselves. And so that's all there available to everybody, but you can add your own contacts, you can add your own products, you can add your own pricing, which is not shared with everybody. And so there's a proprietary element of this catalog as well. And as we mentioned earlier, you can add programs on the fly to this. So I
Yep.
guess maybe the answer is more complicated than you think. It's not one or the other, it's actually both.
Yep. And I'll just note on that, Amanda had a question about, once you add a vendor, do you have to keep adding it? And no, everything that you put in is then stored, so you don't have to keep adding it. It's part of the directory then.
That's great. Lots of
And
great
then,
questions about the directory.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Melissa is asking what the difference is between the premium and standard level options in this example.
Yeah. Wow, sharp eyes. Yeah.
Yes.
So the premium is the vendor that we're working with here has selected to be part of the premium program.
Great. Well, I think we finished the list.
Okay.
Awesome
Great.
questions.
Yeah, definitely keep them coming. Yeah, and so just the last so I kind of went through so far the AI powered recommender, which just works like Amazon to say, here's what we think your client might like. And then there's a way to search through the directory. The other parts are like getting more into a manual mode where if you want, you can upload a media plan from Excel to create your media plan. And then finally, this seems like a little thing, but it's actually much more popular than you would expect, is you currently, when you're creating a media plan in Bionic, or before last week, I should say, you could add lines to your media plan one by one. And now you could just add them in a batch, and you can add them pre-populated with a certain start date and end date. And so this is just kind of a nice time saver review of a batch of lines that have certain date parameters on there. So that's another nice little time saver there. So I feel like I queued up a whole bunch of stuff for you, Casey. So at this point, I guess I'll turn it over to you to pick up the pieces. You just cut out your audio.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no problem. I'll go through it all.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so let me go ahead and no, I was not prepared. Sorry, I was so busy looking at questions. I was not paying attention to my stuff here. Go ahead and share my screen. Okay, is
There
that
it is.
coming
I
through
can
okay?
see it. Yes, thank you.
Beautiful. Making sure I do the right screen. Great. Put glasses on so I can see better. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to start from scratch and just walk through that process. You create a campaign and we start building out a plan. So what I will do here is press just right from this home screen. When you log in, I can just add a campaign. It's one quick way of doing that. From here, I'm going to say who I want it to, what client I want it to tie to. And then I can pop in the campaign name. I'll just call this media plan builder. And then budget and flight dates. Couple little tricks I'm going to show you in this that people may, some of this is new, some of this people may not be aware of otherwise, but budget. Let's say I have $1 million budget. I can type in 1, comma, and it's going to populate my million. So that's kind of cool. Save you some typing of zeros, counting them all out. The other thing is with dates. We've added some cool functionality that kind of helps you without having to like trudge through the calendar and figure all that out. So let's say I want this campaign to start in July, right? And I just type in 7. It's going to assume the first of the month. So automatically, just by typing 7, it fills in July 1st. Now I have a calendar here. again, I could trudge through that, but let's say I want this to end at the end of September and I can't remember what months have what days and whatever. I can just type in 9 and it will automatically fill in the last date of the month. Now, of course, you can go in and change those dates however you want to, but it kind of gets you in the right direction and makes it a little bit faster for you.
Thanks for that, Casey. I think that thing with the dates, that's
You're
actually
so
the
cool.
thing with the dates is new with this release. We had it set before where you typed in 7/1, it would go to 2023. But now you just have to type in the 7, which if you're, I guess, creating a lot of placements or campaigns, that is a nice little text.
Yeah, so all
One of my
those different,
favorite features, even though it's small, the development team will hate me for this, but it's like one of my favorite things. And this is throughout. This is not just on this screen. This is throughout the system. So if
yeah, all
you're
those calendar things, the the money areas, you can put in those commas, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so from here, I just press create and we will have a campaign and we'll go straight to that media plan. So from here, there's this add placements button. So if I just click right on that, it brings me right into the screen. Okay, so in here, I can start just looking at, I've got these program names listed through here. As Joe had mentioned, this is all using that artificial intelligence. I can click on any of the ones I want to work in here. Just grab the first couple here, grab these, press add to plan, and it prompts you there, how many lines do you want for each of these? So let's say I want a couple of lines for each of them. I can pop those in there. I can, adjust these start dates to whatever I want them to be, but it will default to the campaign start dates. And then, there's nothing else in this plan, but so it'll just pop it in, but we do have some options for putting it in between lines. So I'll show you that out as well. So I'm going to say add to plan. Yeah, I'm going to say go ahead and add some more. So let's say I wanted to add
one
something
thing I'll
else.
just point
Oh,
out before you
yeah.
move on, Casey,
Mhm.
is that you'll notice that Casey, this imaginary client looks like they're in farming, and you'll
Yes.
notice that the suggestions that it's making are very, very different than the client I was working with earlier. So, so you can see here, there's a lot of farming oriented publications and websites.
Okay, so now maybe I grab another one and we say, add to plan. I'll just do the one line for this one. And, I can even go ahead and finish these dates or adjust these dates. So maybe I just want this one to be to the end of July. So again, I'm just going to put in the 7 and it'll do it to the last day of the month. And I can say, I want it before, I want it kind of in between these farm and ranch and agri-news. So I'll select agri-news, so it'll go before that. Say add to plan. So now maybe, let's see, I'm gonna add some more. So we've got this section here. I'm going to go into the blanks tab, kind of show you that. So this would be if you just want to add some blank lines, whatever they might be, you're just filling in the details. So here, maybe I want to add, 3 blank lines. And again, I can adjust those dates as needed, end of the plan, or I can put them in between anything that may be in here currently. So I'll just do it at the end. We'll add these to the plan. And then from here, I'll just go ahead to the plan. So you'll see it started building all of this out. Now from here, you just start filling in the details. So let's say, I'll just show a couple of examples here, but we have, this farm and ranch. So I can click on this product line and it comes up with a whole list of products I can choose from. So you can either choose from this list or you can type in whatever you want. It'll just add it to the list for the next time. So if I say 2-page here, you'll notice it actually fills in some details for me. All part of what's stored as part of the programs. So with that product, it's tied to a particular channel. It's got ad unit listed in there. You can override any of this as you need to. Then of course you've got your flight dates, which you can always change at this point if you need to. And then it stored a rate, like there was a rate tied to it. So in this one, it comes through as an each. I'm actually going to go ahead just because it's kind of a monthly publication. I'm going to just switch that over to a per month in here. And then you'll notice the quantity. will automatically change to 3. So that's the quantity of months is 3 based on our dates here. And we scroll over and it's auto calculating now all of our net media costs by month, and it will auto calculate all of our costs. Let's see. So then, so you would just keep going down the line on that. From here, we've got these blank lines. So this may be a situation where again, we just go, we start typing out. We need, we don't have a program selected. We need to select one. So I'll just do another farm one, and I'll just do the farm and ranch living. So this will come up. It'll have all the vendor information. Again, I can just select from this list or free type. Right. So we've got your channel, your ad unit, your dates. And again, I could just, just these dates to whatever I want them to be. And then again, I have a rate that was pre-populated in there. I can adjust that as needed. And then our quantity. So, if I did, let's say, I don't know, 550, for example, I'll just comma, right? And then again, it'll do those impressions. And it auto calculates all of your costs again. All kind of just, makes that process super easy to use. Okay, let's see here. So I guess the other thing I wanted to make sure we talk about, there was there was another tab in that ad placement list that you can actually also access from here. So some of you may be familiar, we have an upload worksheet that uses Excel. So anyone that may be using that today or want to use that, there is this option that you've historically used for this upload worksheet. So if you click on that, it will automatically bring you to that upload tab, which again, you can also use access this through that add placements button. Again, you download your worksheet, make your changes, upload the file, and you just import that file and all just load.
Casey, yeah, while you're there, you were on a roll, so I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, so we did have a question from Sarah
Okay.
asking to show an example of the upload from Excel
Oh,
feature.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's see, I actually have a file I can just grab, but yeah, you would just download to get your template, fill out the pieces. So then we can choose a file here. I don't see, I got all kinds of files here, but we'll grab that particular file, press open. Okay, so it grabs that file, we'll press import. And it'll say it's processing. We can go ahead and close that. And we just, wait for it to process. Give that a second to finish up. Usually pretty quick. There we go. Okay. So you will see here, it's added a couple of placements where all that pertinent data is filled in based on what was in the worksheet.
Thanks, Casey.
Yeah, no problem. So works exactly the same as it always has. Let's see. The other thing I do want to note is where, at least some of you have been using the platform, there's still the same ways of working. So you don't necessarily have to use the add placements option to go through these tabs and add stuff. There is a drop-down menu here that has a function to add blank lines, which is exactly what add placement did before. So if we just add a blank line, I'm gonna go ahead and do that, get that there. And then of course you still have your options for your packages and your roadblocks. Okay, great. So that kind of covers what I was going to cover today. Is there
Okay, well,
any
I do have a
questions?
bunch
I'm
of
sure there's a
questions.
million questions.
Yeah, they keep coming in too, so I'm
Yeah,
trying to stay on top.
sure.
You're on a roll there. So I'll try to make things tie together a little bit.
Mhm.
Suzanne is asking, is there a way of customizing the upload template based on the headers we use in our instance? So I'm guessing that Suzanne has some custom columns and whatnot in the Bionic media plan, and she's wondering, is there a way of customizing the template to accommodate that?
Yeah, so essentially the worksheet is going to pull out if you have any custom columns in your media plan in Bionic, it will pull out all of the fields. So if you have those custom columns, all of those will come out. So yes, you'll be able to fill those in and then upload the data that's tied to it.
Yeah, maybe Casey, if you could
Mhm.
show through
I
the
can
ad
show.
placements where you access that template. So it's right on the right
Yep.
on the screen, right?
Yep. So
Yeah, so
here.
yeah, when you hit that, Suzanne, it will automatically take whatever
Yep.
customizations you've put into Bionic and put it
Yep.
into the template, as well as like if you have pick lists, it will use the Excel magic. I forget what it's called in Excel
Yeah,
to,
it'll
to
so
constrain you. Yeah, there you go. That's a
just like that, it'll have
yeah,
your drop down menu. So if you have a pick list custom column, it'll have the drop down menus with all of those options.
yeah. Answer that. So there's a couple of questions here. Oh, this is it. This is an easy one. This
Okay.
is from an anonymous attendee. Can you plan digital products like OTT using this program?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, yes, and yes. So you will see, it may be just easiest to show you. There's this channel drop-down menu that has a lot of, it's CTV, OTT, all of these different options you can plan against. So everything. And then there's also
Yeah.
an other. So if there's something else, have at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll even point out you scrolled past it is if you're doing metaverse media planning or augmented
Mhm.
reality, those are actually in there.
Yep.
Yeah. So we try to stay on top of things in terms of
Audience.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yep. Anything, pretty much any media you can plan in Bionic.
Okay. So there's a couple questions related to broadcast media media
Okay.
planning.
Mhm.
The first one is it generally asks, is there a way to put like Nielsen or ComScore or other ratings data into a media plan?
Absolutely. So, well, you'll notice these little icons down here, what we call the teleporting tools. So go right down to the ratings data. So absolutely, we do have all the fields to support for your ratings. And I'll just make stuff up as we go along here, but you'll notice there's Nielsen television, audio, effective, NCC, so on and so forth. So all the different options are in there. So we can do our gender and age and all of that. Then whatever that demo population is, we make sure that's in there. And then your ratings. So I'll just pop in, make stuff up here. We'll go 1, right? And so if let's say we had spots on this one, so let's say there's 20 spots, right, which would automatically come in based on how you put that in there anyhow. So and on that, it will then automatically calculate your reach and frequency.
Just looking, thanks, Casey. Actually, it looks like Alyssa asked a very similar question. So I think you
Mhm.
just answered that.
Okay.
Alyssa, please let me know if we did not.
Yeah.
And just catching up to all these questions. There's 2 questions that are somewhat related. Is related to is there a way for vendors to be able to upload information into the plan, and it asked
Mm.
about XML and proposal XML.
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the RFP process, within an RFP, you're able to lay out all of your requirements, send that over to the vendors. They would log in. We have an ad sales side of our platform. They log in, they complete a proposal. Now, with your television, your radio, your cable TV, they can just grab a proposal XML output from whatever platform they're using and upload that as part of their the proposal back to you. So it'll have the full schedule in there, send it over to you. You can do your normal negotiations. And then when it's time to go, press accept. All those line items go right into your media plan. And it can also include ratings as part of that upload.
Yeah, it's a huge time saver for the,
Huge.
yeah. So they, generally speaking, I'm sure there's a lot of different systems that ad sales teams use to track inventory and prices and avails. But pretty much most of them are able to export into this format, and so they can use their own system to gather inventory, press one button to export the file, and press another one in Bionic to create the proposal, and then you review that and you press a button to include it in your plan. So there's a lot of automation throughout, and the right checks and balances too, because obviously you wouldn't want it to automatically go into the plan. Here's a good question from Sarah. Are you able to go back to the catalog once the media plan has been created? And I think maybe, Casey, what Sarah is asking, is there a way to learn more about it? So maybe just show one of those data cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the programs all there's actually something underneath all the programs. So this is representative of that brand or the platform or whatever it is that program is representing. Of all the pertinent information, the vendor website and so on. Whatever contacts may be available. And again, you can add your own profile data. This one may not have that, but some of them will have some profile demo information. And then, of course, the products that they offer. And again, this is all stuff you can add to right from the media plan. So as you add new products, you type them in, it'll store all that information for you.
Yeah.
And then
So,
you'll also be able to see where you've used that particular program in the past.
oh, that's a good point, Casey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the questions too, is like, say, you're new to the account and you wonder, has this
Mhm.
advertiser ever used this before? You can see that on the usage tab.
Yeah.
It's a
So
good.
yeah, so and I'll point out, there's a link from the plan here, but if we do the ad placements, we go to find, you can access that from here too. Anytime you just click on that program name, it will open it up.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. One thing maybe the reason Sarah was asking is that after you add it from the recommender, it
Mhm.
sort of disappears from the list.
Mhm.
So there is that. Did you show the drop down earlier? I can't remember where it says recommendations now.
Oh, right, versus entire database,
Or well, the other one is added to media
added to the
plan,
media
which
plan.
would
Yep,
actually show you the list of
the short
programs
list.
added to that
Yep,
plan. So you could add again, I guess, if you wanted to.
yep,
Um, so actually, could you go back to the recommendations, because there's a question related to that.
sure.
So the question is, what is the strength score and how is it determined? And is it relevance, reach, potential, etc.? So it's a great question. And I guess I could summarize as there's a lot of math. It's a lot of linear algebra specifically. But what that is the strength is just our way of determining in the recommender what should go in the first position, and second position, and the third position. So it's really more about sorting things than anything else. And so just to draw an analogy is when you say log into Amazon and it gives you recommendations, they have to figure out what should be in the first position, second, and third, and they use a similar technique to be able to determine that. Likewise, again, for Spotify, or when you go into Netflix, you log into your Netflix account and it recommends movies to you. They don't show you the actual number, the score here, but they're doing a similar sort of thing behind the scenes. So I hope I answered that question. Let's see what else we have here. There's a couple questions in the strength score, so I think I answered those. Excuse me, Casey. I was
Oh, you're fine.
answering rather than looking at the questions.
Lots of questions.
Yeah, there are.
So, and I apologize, I see we are going over time here, but these are such great
Oh,
questions.
anybody? Yeah, you're welcome. We're available clearly,
Yep.
so we're happy to continue here.
Mm.
So I'll just read it. So there's a question here from Scott. We often use our insertion order as our negotiation platform with media companies, especially electronic media, with lots of spots flighted and weighted on different days. Can you start with an IO or an insertion order and have it populate the media plan builder?
So it's more of just looking at this, I think, from a little bit different direction. So that's really where that RFP would come into play, that, have that kind of schedule the placements built out. You can do that negotiation, add it to your plan. Bionic does have an order management tool. So it would actually take all that placement data from your media plan and create an order where you would end up with your insertion order that you can then again send to the vendors electronically or offline, or if they're sending you insertion orders, you can also log that as well.
Yeah, I might suggest, that, that certainly is one way to do it through the RFP. I'll tell you like another way is to sort of like use the media plan builder as you are here, just to create a draft media plan, and then select those line items. Say select lines 1 and 2, Casey, or maybe select the first 5 lines if you want, and just to kind of give an example. And then from here, you can go ahead and place the orders, or I guess you can just go into the orders tab.
Yeah, you can just go in orders.
Yeah, that's maybe a better way to go after it. And say add orders. And then it'll ask you which vendors would you like to work with. So you can maybe just say 3. And so that'll actually add the, create the basis for your IOs. So you'll have 3 IOs here. And then you can go in and use this as your negotiating tool. And so, of course, at this point, if you're kind of happy with it, you can send it off to them. Or, if you want to work with the line items, you're certainly welcome to continue to add line items to your IO and send it back and forth. So when you get into the IO phase, you have the ability to approve things, send them to the vendor. They can, reject it. If they don't like it, you can revise it, send it again, and it does the version control for you. And as you might be able to, I don't want to, this is a deeper topic that we can't really spend too much time on here, but you could add all the legal terms and everything that you would have in an IO through that same sort of mechanism. But you could absolutely use that, Scott. And we're happy to talk to you offline as well. So I think hopefully that answers your question, Scott. Oh, okay. So Samantha is asking, you want to go back to the media plan, Casey? Is there a way to adjust the order of line items in the media?
Oh, yeah. Well, any of these headers you can sort by. So if you click on channel, it'll resort by channel. The other thing is you can move lines around. So if we see where the indicator here has changed a little bit, I can take this and I can drag it down and it'll change that order.
That's a good question. There's a question here. I'm afraid I say the name. I look like Rorschach. Can you show the flowchart feature?
Yeah, of course. Won't be the greatest of examples because I've just kind of been filling in a little bit of data here, but we can definitely click based on what we've got. We click on the flowchart and it will just auto build a flowchart here. Now, I don't have a lot of data tied with this, but you'll see for these ones where I filled out, when things are running and what the costs are, it's auto building all of that. And this can be customized a whole slew of different ways. And then, of course, you can export these as image, PDF, and Excel.
Yep. Again, another deep topic that probably can cover. We're happy to cover that with you offline, Rorschach. Here's a good question from Carrie. Carrie's new to our software, and she's asking, where do the rates come from? So she was seeing some of the rates populating into the media plan. And so kind of a follow-on question to that is, do we have the ability to add our own that aren't available for the public? So actually, this is a great way to show it off. Casey,
yeah. So there's different ways the rates can come through. So within the program itself, you'll have all of the different products. If the vendor has made this information public, they've shared it, that would be in the standard rate column. However, not always the case, then that's not always shared out there. Now, what will happen though, is there's this column for hour rate. So as you use this, it will remember what you've paid for it. And so it'll autofill that in. So the next time you use it, it'll just pull through. Makes it pretty simple. And then, of course, if you're using the RFP process and they're giving you special rates, that will all come through as part of the proposal. And then when you add it to the plan, that just comes through as well.
Yeah. So it's kind of like media kit, like standard rates, whatever the publisher provides, as well as the whatever you have paid for the past. And also on that usage tab that Casey showed you earlier, you can see the full history of rates that you've.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's one way to get it.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah,
Extra clicks.
yeah, yeah. So if you want to see the full history of rates over time with that particular publication, it's there. Um, so here's another question. It's kind of related to the. Looks like it's related to the ratings, possibly.
Okay.
Um, it said, are any of those fields automated? Is population, etc., or is
Oh,
everything manually
sure.
input?
Hmm.
Yeah, so as you're going over there, I'll start to answer that a little
Go
bit.
ahead.
See, so the list of markets you could see, like if you go in and say type Boston into one of those or New York or whatever, um, you'll notice that there's a few things. One is Boston shows up a bunch of times, and it's because there's different rating services available to Casey's account. And so there's different rating services available around the world, and we'll essentially support, all of those market schemes. If that rating service provides populations along with each of the markets, then that'll be populated. The thing that is not automatically populated is the actual rating itself. So that has to come from either your login to, like, say, Nielsen, or if the vendor is using Nielsen and providing that as part of the RFP, obviously that will automatically come into your media plan. But it just by selecting the market and the program, it won't automatically pre-fill unless the vendor has provided it. So hopefully that answers that question. There's a good question here. Let's see. There's a lot of awesome questions, Casey. I
I
think
know.
they're not only the one of the most questions we may have gotten at a webinar, but also some of the best.
Mhm.
So Nancy is asking, is there a way to calculate combined reach and frequency
Mm.
for all channels in a campaign with the new media planner builder update?
So yeah, you've got your reach and frequency here, and then down at the bottom, it will actually give you your reach at the very bottom. So it'll, just by having all the lines kind of filled out, it tallies it up at the bottom.
Yeah, you might want to open up that tool there, Casey.
This tool.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so where, any one of these placements, you can potentially have that overlap. This does give you the capability of, adjusting the overlap you want to count for. So in this case, it's set at 0, but I could say that there's, a 15% or whatever, percent overlap that I want to assume. So just by adjusting that, again, it'll do its calculation. I don't have enough data in here to really show it, but it will assume like a 15% overlap and calculate it based on that.
Yep. Yeah, this is a very complicated topic, and
Mhm.
Nancy, I'm sure you know this stuff, so you're familiar with it. I'm happy to send you some more background. There's actually a blog post that goes into depth about various ways to calculate cumulative reach and how we do it here within the tool. Here's a good question for you, Casey.
Mhm.
We've been spending a lot of time talking about that catalog. How
Yeah.
often is that information updated?
It is constantly being updated. So it's it's an ongoing, updates from vendors, from, we help with that process as well. So it's, constantly being updated
Yeah, like literally
every single day.
yeah, well, not only every day, like
It's
every
like
minute.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and the key thing is we had mentioned those 14,000 companies that participate in the catalog.
Hmm.
Each of those companies has, marketing or ad sales teams, and all of them have an interface, or they can
Hmm.
log in and update things really whenever they would like. And so that, all of them plus us, we're out there proactively reaching out as well. That helps it to be a very dynamic catalog. Um, so here's another good question, Casey. Can CPM for all types of media be calculated automatically?
Oh, Absolutely. So I'm going to use my teleporter here to go down this section for KPIs. So you have control over what KPIs that you may want to track in this, and there's a whole slew of them to choose from. Got a couple in here based on how I've priced things out, but the impressions and CPM are part of that. So a couple different directions I could go is I could say, I have some expectation of impressions, and I don't remember what I have rates on here. So give me 1 minute. Okay, so that one's a flat 750. So when I do my KPIs, I go here and I, say I have, I'm just making up numbers here, but a $10 CPM goal, it'll calculate the number of impressions. There we go. Or I could say, hey, I expect X number of impressions. Again, I'll just make up numbers here, and then it will automatically calculate the CPM. So yeah, so yeah, all the different KPIs it will do the calculations for across any media.
Yeah.
And then of course you can buy CPM as well. So when you've got your rates, you can set whatever rate you're buying at, and that'll obviously carry into your KPIs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You ready for some more questions, Casey? We do have some more that
Yes.
keep coming in. So I'll answer one here. So there's a question, is there a tool for a market ranker request? And sorry to say, no, Bionic does not include a ranker tool. But if you're, whatever system that you're using for ratings, whether it's Nielsen or whatever, there should be ranker tools built into that. So I'm sure they'll be able to get, and that the output from the ranker is oftentimes the input to Bionic. So certainly use that. So here's another question related to that. There's a lot of ratings questions here. This is from a question from Melissa. She's asking, are we able to estimate our own ratings based on historical data?
So I'm going to have you answer that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
a quick answer is yes.
Yeah. I was going to say, I would think so.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Alyssa, if that rating section is very flexible, and you would just put in whatever market that rating is for, and then if you've got ratings data based on historicals, you can just add that in there. So here's say change that to 2.4. Maybe that's the number, Alyssa, that you have, and as soon as you type that in, you'll see that the numbers will update accordingly. So you can see they just updated based on your numbers. So that's a good question, Alyssa. Let's see. So there's a clarification earlier. Is unclear on the response to the earlier upload question. So the uploaded file from the vendor has to be XML, can't be an Excel file, ? And it only works for TV radio vendors. What about digital? So I guess the answer to that is Casey earlier demonstrated an upload from an Excel file, which supports all 44 media channels and whatever ones we add for the future. So that if you're a media planner and want to upload from Excel, you can do it however you want. As far as the vendor tool for using that, there's a specific format called proposal XML. That is really pretty. It's not our standard. It's was actually developed, I believe, by the 4As, and it is specific for broadcast media. So typically that's TV and radio, where you have things like spots and ratings. So we're just really supporting that industry standard in that particular case. So there's a couple different ways to upload into Bionic, I guess, is the summary answer there. Hopefully that answers your question. What is the campaign measurement metric of out-of-home OOH?
Well, it would be whatever you want it to be, right? So
Yeah.
any of these placements, whatever the media, you can pick and choose, again, what KPIs you're tracking
Yeah,
and
maybe
what
Casey,
those
you could just
goals
go
are.
in and just
I can
click on the
certainly share.
settings. Yeah, so there is a KPI section, and I can't remember the numbers, like 80 or 100 different KPIs. So there's KPI columns. And right now we just have 2, but you can see here there's a whole long
There's a
list of
lot of
KPIs.
them.
And I want to say, like, I'd be bold to say that pretty much every KPI is covered. And I know that as soon as I say that, somebody will say, well, what about this other one? Um, and the reason that list is so long is because of that question. When we do come across a KPI that, does make sense to be in there, we add it for you. So that becomes part of the software. Um, So there's a question, is there a clean spec sheet output that can be sent to the creative teams and agencies? So like it sounds like they work with, an outside creative team that now you've got a media plan and you want to, send that to
Mhm.
creative along with all of the specs, which I guess maybe this campaign is not a great example because there's not a ton of specs in there, but I mean, you could maybe talk through it, Casey.
Yeah, so yeah, all of these fields here, you got the targeting and the ad specs and all the moving pieces of this plan. And so from there, you can present this data a variety of different ways, but it may be as simple as just grabbing a media plan output in Excel that will have all the moving pieces. You grab that and export it, and that would come out for you to present, send off to whoever you need to.
Another great question from Melissa. Can you integrate these KPIs with Google Analytics results?
Yeah, so there's lots of integrations in terms of getting results data back in. But you have this great plan and all of these expectations around costs and quantities and all of those various KPIs. So I'll just point out maybe easier this way. We go into settings, we go into integrations, just to give you kind of a sense of we support a whole slew of different platforms as well as third party. So we also have some templates that you can use for third party data. So yeah, we can just have that data come back in so you can monitor pacing along the way.
Yeah. And since Melissa's asking about Google Analytics, you might want to just touch on the capabilities in terms of constructing tracking URLs.
No, yep, absolutely. So let's see here. Let's go down
Yeah,
to
that would be an
this
implement.
section. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this section here, there's a few things we do just as part of automation, one being placement name conventions, the other being the tracking URLs. So if I type in, bear with me as I type. Oh, right. So if I type in a landing page URL, right, it's going to auto-generate a tracking URL for me. And that's all customizable. So whatever you want it, whatever structure you need it to be, it will come out that way.
Yeah, and you can see here, actually, if you click on that tracking URL, Casey, that was just created, that is an analytics format. So if you are using analytics, that's kind of a default format, but if you're using Omniture or some other tool, we can, customize Bionic to meet whatever you need. And by the way, like really anything in your media plan can be included in that tracking URL. I'm glad you asked, Melissa. That's one of our favorite tools. And I'm overwhelmed with the questions here, Casey. So does Bionic integrate with other agency project management software like Clients and Profits?
We definitely can work with other platforms. So it all depends on the context of the situation, where that makes sense, and how we might be able to do that. So, Joe, and I'll let you, if you want to, however you might want to elaborate on that.
No, I mean, that's fine. I guess that's we integrate with a lot of different tools, and we have standard formats that work with those tools, just sort of like vanilla out of the box, or we can develop custom integrations for you as well. Here's a question that's near and dear to my heart from Tina. Can this tool monitor ad delivery pacing?
It absolutely can.
Yeah, it was built for this. This is a yeah. So I'll maybe, since it's near and dear to my heart, I'll answer this. So in order to do pacing, you need essentially two parts. You need to know what the plan is, and you also need to know what the actuals are. And so one of the things that you may not be apparent looking at the media plan interface is when you lay down those KPIs, whether it be spending or impressions or clicks or conversions or return on ad spend, whatever it happens to be for your KPIs. So if you could actually scroll over a little bit, Casey, so we can see the KPIs. So on line 2, you can see there's 100,000 impressions. And so that looks like it's just like, one field. What's really happening behind the scenes is Bionic is taking that 100,000 and actually creating a day-by-day plan for the, and it respects the things like week parting and the start date and end date and flighting and all of the complexity of planning. And what it'll do is it'll take that 100,000 and distribute it, over the course of the campaign. So that lays down your plan. So now you've got a plan in place. So the next question, the next ingredient to pacing is, the actuals data. And so what we would do is, say this was a digital campaign. I can't remember what this one is, but say it was your ad server. Say it was I was going to say DCM, but GCM, Google Campaign Manager, as your ad server. And now your ad server is also collecting data. What we do is pull that data from GCM. And so now you have your actuals in a day-by-day format. And then based on that, we will show you the pacing for that. And we don't have actuals data here, so we can't show it to you. But that is something that Bionic was built from the ground up to be able to do. And so that shows you pacing within Bionic. And I know people were asking earlier about, can I export this to my dashboard? Yes, all that pacing data, including the raw numbers, can be exported to your dashboard too. So let's see here. Lots of great questions.
Yeah.
I think we're getting down to it. I think that might be it. So I do have a question here, but I think we've already used up our allotted time here. Probably have lost half the audience.
Yeah, so we're an hour.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do this one offline, Casey. But
Mhm.
can you show an example of a e-commerce media plan? So to answer that question of like, can we do it? Yes, we can, but probably not right now. So maybe call into support, and we'd be happy to share with you an e-commerce version of the media plan. And I see Nancy here. I'll follow up with you, Nancy, if you're still on the line here. So wow, that was a lot, Casey.
It
You
was a
did an
lot.
awesome job. I was coming at you from every angle. I shouldn't say I was. Our audience was.
Yeah, awesome.
Lots of great questions. I could tell based on the questions that we have a super smart audience. So I'm really happy to be able to answer those questions. So I have one final question for you, Casey. Is suppose we wrap this up. Somebody has another question,
Mhm.
or wants to learn how to use this, or wants some training. How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so feel free to reach out to us. So on our website, within the app, you can use the chat with us. You can, let's see, in that which I'm trying to get my mouse there. There we go, the chat with us there. You can call us, you can email us. However, whatever way is easiest for you, definitely reach out. And just to note, you can reach us, support at bionic-ads.com is a great way, just via email real quick, or just go to our website, and there's a chat on the website too, if you need something quick and dirty.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's it, Casey. So much for a 20-minute webinar.
I know, right?
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Good. Well, I've got one other thing. This is from Sam here saying thank you.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah, so anybody that's still on, I really appreciate your time, especially. I'm glad you're so excited about this. We are too. This was a big project. I'm glad that you like it. And thanks again, Casey.
Okay.
You did a fantastic job.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, have a great one, guys. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.